All right, welcome back. Week 3. We are looking now at the commercial revolution. This is that first of several revolutions that really exploded between the 15th, 16th, 1700s to really set up that transition phase from traditional to modern history. So let's dive right into it. All right, we looked previously at traditional and what made traditional different than modern. We looked at things such as how people used power or energy. Traditional was animal, water, wind, etc. When we get into modern, we're looking at man-made energies and powers, coal, fossil fuels, steam, locomotion, etc., etc. These were some of the things that we looked at. The migration, the movement of people, where did they live, being rural out in the agricultural world or tribal, they're nomadic, they're moving around. That was very traditional. In very small cloisters, that was traditional. And then as we became more industrialized, moved more into the commercial type of modern history, people moved where the product was. They moved where the work was, moved more into cities and built cities, and that became the way of life then. Same thing with sort of identities. We had many people in the traditional sort of being born, being raised, getting married, having kids, growing old, dying in the same little area, 30, 50-mile radius of where everything began for them. And that was their world. Whereas in modern history, we have more movement of people, more migration, more sharing of information. And so therefore, we have a greater sort of scope, greater influences, more global influences that are covering and moving throughout the world. There's many other ones that we looked at, but those are the basics. So what I want to look at is I want to look at what sort of triggered this first revolution, this first supernova, so to speak, of change, and that's the commercial revolution. And without a doubt, the biggest element was the discovery of the New World. As the 1400s closed, 1500s began, we had the discovery of the New World and the development of settlements and extraction of resources and how that commercialism just sort of exploded. But what were they trying to get? What was happening? If you look at the pursuit for trade, it's mostly European countries that are doing it. They are in the New World. They're trying to extract from the West while at the same time maintaining Eastern trade with Southeast Asia, with India, with the Far East, even though, as we discussed last time, the Far East is closing its doors, becoming more isolationists at that time. So Europe is looking very heavily towards the West, towards the New World. And what are they looking for? Well, they're looking for things like sugar and coffee and tobacco. They're looking for money. They're looking for silver, mining gold, and they're looking for trade, particularly monopolies. And we're going to talk about that in the next video. But these are the things that they were looking to the West to find. And why? Why were they doing it? Why did they need resources? Because their countries were small and their resources were being used up. They needed new resources or new sources of these resources in order to keep their people going, to keep them surviving, keep them advancing. And the commercial revolution was a big element in this. Again, that's that situation. They're looking at it, what can we get? What can we gain from these new worlds, these new territories, these new lands? And there's problems and opportunities, of course. And then they make choices based on that. So the situations, as I said, these are the situations that existed. They have the West and they have the resources that are there. This is very unknown land to Europe. They've never explored it really. It's massive. There are people already living there, so there are some problems and things like that, but they need the resources. Again, this is in the Atlantic world. You can see how the trade routes moved back and forth there. In India and in Southeast Asia, those are more trade routes that also presented certain situations. Again, Far East has closed its doors. Where are they going to get these supplies? How are they going to get in? Opportunities. They have all these resources. They have all these goods. They have opportunity to trade, which means they're going to build money and people are going to get fat and happy. And so that is an opportunity they want to partake on. So opportunities, goods, money, as we said before. Land was another one. They have new land. Remember back in Europe, their land is limited, but compared to the New World, the land is just massive. Assuming that you can get the land from the people that already own it. There's settling there. There's strategic positioning there. Discovery of new knowledge with exploration, new resources, will develop new learning, new cultural interchange, and that's always interesting and can share ideas and innovation together. There is a tolerance for religious freedom. We have, when you move to a different colony, this is particularly true of the British colonists on the east coast of what is now the United States, those 13 colonies. Many of the people that came there came for the point of being able to exercise and practice their religion in the way that they wished, without having the king or whatever kind of suppress it. New markets. If I have colonies, I have new markets. They're my new customers. If I'm England and I have a colony, those colonists want my tea, they want my British products and manufactured goods, and so now I have another market. And of course, new resourcing. Just take a look at this map. This is Central America between 1520 1750. If you really look up close at this, you can see where you have silver mining. That's mostly controlled and concentrated in the Mexico, what is current day Mexico region. It contributed about 90% of the Spanish American exports. So what does Spain get from this particular area of the land? Money. If you look into Cuba, Santo Domingo, Puerto Rico, those areas, those are staffed or the workers are African slave labor, whereas in Mexico and things like that, that's more local native peoples. We have sugar, we have coffee. There's much that's being extracted. This region of the New World will become the golden empire. It will be the most valuable land per square mile of all of the New World. The riches in this area, the ability to extract goods from this area is just massive. You can look up even closer. You can see who has what area. The Saint-Domingue, that's that yellow area. That's the French. That's going to be important coming up in the next several weeks when we have military revolutions and we have uprisings, because that is going to be an area where the slaves are actually, the African slaves are going to rise up and take over that part of the world. Other areas are controlled by the British, the Dutch, in many areas, and you can see how trade routes are starting to go back and forth. What is being moved from where to where? And again, every time you have that shift in goods, you have money, you have commercialism being happening. What problems did they face as this started to grow, as more and more settlers settled there, as they wanted to extract more resources? What sort of problems? Well, you need ships. You need to be able to transport those goods back and forth across the Atlantic. Of course, you also need protection, because it would be really easy for somebody to invest in some plantation, extract some goods, get ready to carry it back to England, and a pirate ship comes along and just takes it out from under them, and they don't have to do any work other than just capture the ship. So protection, very important. What about the need for science? Well, they need science. They need to be able to navigate better. They need to be able to cultivate crops and products better. They need to be able to figure out how they're going to extract silver and gold from the various different areas. And they didn't have really good systems for that quite yet. There's the need for labor, of course. That's throughout the supply chain. Not only the people who are growing and working in the fields or working in the mines, but you need people on the ships who can transport and know how to properly manage the transport of goods back and forth. You need money handlers and accountants. These are all new laborers that were not part of the commercial world up until this point. You also need, as I said, protection. You need to be able to put down rival competitors. The French were not really super happy with England's success, nor vice versa. So there was competition there. There was piracy, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, over this entire huge, massive enterprise, there is the need for money. There is the need to be able to put money into these innovations and building these sciences and learning and cultivating ideas. They need to have that money, but they also need the insurance to back those enterprises. You don't want to ship with goods that's worth $100,000 or whatever coming across the Atlantic and sinking. Then you lose $100,000 worth of goods that you could probably sell at market for 3, 4, 5 times that amount of money. That's a lot of money to lose. So you need to find a way to insure these particular enterprises. So what were some of the solutions? What choices did these people have? Well, that's what we're going to look at in our next video. So go get a Coke soda or get something healthy, grab a water, and come back and we'll see you in just a few minutes.